Good morning. Well, 7 o'clock in the morning. The sky is blue and clear. That could go on for quite a while. The well-ploughed fields for the potatoes. The sun is climbing. There's a bunch of runners on their way. The temperature is warm. There is no wind. And morning. And I'm out for my walk. I'm carrying a stick today, a walking pole. Anyway, oh, there's a couple of ducks. There you go. So, kayaking down the little burn, the little stream. How lovely. How lovely. I'm sure everybody who sees this will agree that this is indeed very, very lovely. Come across this side. Yeah. I have never been one for solitary walking or just sitting or being on my own. And I said to Colin, I'm becoming more and more, I just love it. I really do. I'm so glad that however long ago I started this. It was just, okay, so when we all hit a certain age, there's an impact on our hormones, our metabolism, etc. And I don't know when I hit that certain age in particular, because a lot of women would recognize it as menopause and they're able to recognize it. But I had a hysterectomy when I was in my 20s. So, but I tell you what, there's not even a doubt in my mind that menopause is, whether it's, I don't know what they call perimenopause, or if it's menopause or post, I'm not sure. But there's some extraordinary changes that happen in the female physiology, in the body, and the way we function. And people, and it's their right to, try to, mitigate these effects by any number of things. Some people get HRT, some people take all sorts of remedies and herbal things and what have you. I'm very fortunate it hasn't impacted my moods or anything like that. Just something I learned many years ago from a lady called Maxine, and just how to stop your emotions controlling you. It was a very, very simple lesson. I mean, she never taught me anything. It was just a lesson that she spoke the one day into my life. And it was like just a few sentences, and I took it on board. And I realized I didn't want to be that person who was always the victim of my hormones, the victim of moods, etc., etc. And I'm going back to about 2011, when I was of the mind that we had no choice. And I would say that. I'd say, well, I'm a woman and I get affected by my hormones, and so there's nothing I can do. If I'm in a bad mood, then I'm in a bad mood. It's, and so deal with it. And I would just become the victim of those, I don't know. It's unpleasant to be in a bad mood. It's horrible. It affects everything. It affects your quality of life, your relationships, your ability to function in a way that brings you joy. So anyway, having been a person that was affected a lot by hormones and all sorts of other life patterns, there's another whole conversation around that, and mindsets and etc. But I heard this woman, she said that she said she had a bad day one day, and it was one bad day where she was obviously emotional, and her husband turned around and said, I will not accept this. You need to sort yourself out and control it. Now, I don't think it was as blunt, maybe it was, but that's how I heard it. And I thought, that's fascinating. Because she told me that was the very last day. It was one day for her and then it was done. She was able to sort it out in her head. And then, of course, since then you come across people who teach on things. The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. How to Switch on Your Brain by Caroline Leaf. I mean, that was a life-changing book for me. How to Switch on Your Brain. And I had first learned about the neural pathways and toxic neural pathways through Michelle Stradom, a Zimbabwean-born doctor trained and qualified in South Africa, came back to Zim and wrote a book and did a video series, a DVD series called, oh my goodness, something about healing anyway. No disease is incurable. There you go, no disease is incurable. And that's where I first learned about these toxic neural pathways, and that was referenced to Caroline Leaf, so I bought her book. And it is possible to break down deeply laid neural pathways, negative neural pathways that are toxic to your way of thinking and being being, and replace them with good pathways. So that's been a journey for me for a long time, years. It's been little moments along life's journey. I thought that was a car coming up behind me, but it's not. Where there's been these little staging points or little moments of revelation, epiphany, understanding, awakening. There's so many words to use for the same thing, but where I've suddenly understood something. And it's not so much that it's not a didactic teaching from somebody and slavishly listening. It's as something is said, it opens up in the mind as, oh, it's like, wow, I get it. It happened with Michelle Stradom's teaching, when it was on the issue of allergies. So I trained as a midwife in the NHS, and I have some, meager understanding of physiology, biology, etc., and how things affect us and the different body systems, how they're affected by different things. And Michelle's teaching on allergies just revolutionized the way I approached the fact that I had a daily antihistamine, because my eyes itched, my nose itched, I sneezed all the time, and I could not go a day without an antihistamine and antihistamine drops. And then I heard this teaching, and she mixes scientific, biological, physiological truth with spiritual truth. But when she spoke to me and said, when she spoke at that, it was a seminar, it was as though she was speaking to me, because she said, oh, there's a heron. Not sure if I'm getting it. Yeah, it's in the distance. She made a very, very a crazy statement. And she said, you can't be allergic to anything. There's no such thing. Well, of course, mad woman that she was, she then went on to explain how it was impossible to actually be allergic to anything. And because I had some understanding of biology, etc., it actually made perfect sense. Settled in my head as pure logic. And that was the last time I ever needed to take a daily antihistamine. I have obviously since then understood that antihistamines have the effect of creating the problem itself, the same as pretty much all medicines. if you if you take paracetamol for headaches and you read on the side effects of paracetamol are headaches. It's really interesting, that, isn't it? And PPIs, the things to try and stop heartburn, they cause heartburn. So there's something built into these pharmaceuticals that cause the very problems they're trying to reduce. Anyway, so I digress. How to switch on your brain. Yeah, there's great power in the way that we think. So if I was just sharing with somebody recently, appropriately, I don't do teaching and I don't do any of that stuff that I used to do. I don't preach and I don't teach and I don't tell. But this lady was chatting, and she was an elderly lady who has been undergoing some very, very hectic cancer treatment, and lives alone in a small rural village, and she's really just a bit afraid about going back home and not having any help, because she's been hospitalized now for a few months and she's not done anything for herself, and now she's going to be sent home, and she doesn't know how she's going to manage. And I was just trying to help her not be afraid. Fear is something that we build into ourselves by being concerned about something that hasn't happened. And obviously also relating back to the past traumatic experiences and projecting that into the future, because fear is potent, controlling, limiting, reducing. It just reduces life. So anyway, I just shared a little bit with her about, obviously the past is done. I've mentioned it on walks before. Yesterday's done. Don't even worry about it. Learn from it. Take from it some learning. Tomorrow is not here. We can be prepared for tomorrow. I know recently I talked in one of these walks about being prepared. And then we have today, the present day. The not fighting obstacles, that just being and accepting what is in today, accepting it for what it is. If it is painful, accepting the pain. If it is uncomfortable, if it is whatever, just accept it, and don't. In my mind, it's dangerous to fight it, because greater injury is done. As a midwife, I remember part of my role was to try and encourage a labouring mother to relax into the surges, relax into what we would have called contractions. Even the word contraction conjures up pain for people, because it's been so poorly portrayed by Hollywood. We see things in Hollywood and in movies and on TV series and everything, women screaming and da-da-da-da and all sorts of, fear and pain and what have you. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but if you can help somebody to rest into that, relax, fall into that, and allow it to move through their body, actually labour can be far less intensive, intensely frightening or what have you. And I said something the other day. I said 16-year-olds are actually the best at giving birth. That was my experience. I don't know if it's true of 16-year-olds today, but back when I was a student midwife, I helped more than one young teen to have her baby, and there was something so, I don't know, they just had their babies, There There wasn't a huge amount of drama. There wasn't an enormous amount of fear. There was pain, but it was pain that came and went, and they just coped. They dealt with it very, very well. And their babies came quite quickly because of that. There was a acceptance and not a fight against. And perhaps as we age, we have too much, we have experienced too much trauma in our lives, so things that are attached to the past. And that's a link that keeps a negative emotion and a physical reaction to it in our bodies. So talking about doing a lot of inner work, etc., over the years, that's been just something that's been part of my pilgrimage through this world. And the analogy of what's in the cup or what's in the bucket, if you kick it, that's what's going to come out. And what was really interesting is that happened recently, where there was a particular incident that happened, and there was this rather quick sense of anger, and it suddenly just disappeared. And reflecting back, I recognize that there's nothing hooking onto the past. My traumas and what have you, which we've all got, every one of us experiences trauma in some way or other, that becomes an embedded neural pathway. Mine are healed, but it's taken years. It's taken regular practice, and that practice is taking captive every thought and bringing it into the obedience, for me, the obedience of Jesus Christ and his teaching. And yeah, that's my pilgrimage where I am, is just to love people, to love, that's the greatest desire of my heart, and that's what I believe that's what I asked for. I want to be able to love people unconditionally. I want to love as I am loved. I want to do unto others as I would have them do unto me. And I couldn't see that or understand it or know it or have any inclination of what that meant until the neural pathways were replaced. And there are ways to do it. And, you know, if anybody listening to this is interested, I would say go and get Caroline's book, buy it, and put into practice what she teaches. It's really simple neuroscience. It's not woo-woo, it's not religious, it's none of that. It's neuroscience. It's real and it's true and it works. So, yeah, I'm so blessed and so grateful to have had these amazing moments in my life over a number of years, and different people have brought these as offerings without knowing it. I can just observe it in somebody. I can just, understand it from somebody's story, etc. And so long as I'm open-hearted, I can hear truths that actually inform, change, empower, and better my understanding, my functioning, and the way that I view the world. That's just the way it works for me. And, by no means perfect, by no means beyond being a total and utter fallible human being on a daily basis, as we all are. But I think the important thing is, well, for me anyway, has been the ability to recognize it when it happens, that sense of awareness, knowing that, oh, that's how you're reacting, that's how you're responding, that's how you're feeling, why? And then being able to also capture thoughts. It's amazing because it's just natural now, whereas it was hard work in the beginning. But an errant thought or a really strong thought form comes through, and I know I am not my thoughts. I am not my thoughts. So if that thought comes, I can say, no, that's not me. And I don't dwell on it. If it is something that goes against my sense of moral rightness in my character. And anyway, don't know if that's been of any help for anybody, and it's been a bit of a ramble. I'm prone to rambling as I ramble down the street or the winding road through the countryside, and hope you've enjoyed a bit of a journey and a wee walk together today, Thursday, whatever date it is, 25th, something like that. Anyway, have a beautiful, enriched day with love and blessings. Bye.